Gardens is situated in North Paddington, which is very densely populated in a city area. It's on the edge of Westminster, Westminster being one of London's wealthiest boroughs, but you wouldn't know it to look round here. North Paddington's quite classic, really. It suffers from every kind of social problem you can think of, like bad housing. There's hardly any parks anywhere, which is why Meanwhil's so valuable. And before there was Meanwhile Gardens, all there was, where Meanwhile Gardens is now, is just derelict land, waste ground really, surrounded by tin, corrugated iron. It used to be houses, but they were knocked down, and nothing was ever done with the land until Meanwhile Gardens came along. That started when a group of local people began to get really fed up with looking at all the corrugated iron all the time and thought it would be a lot better to have a park there. And just got on and started, really. I've held a few meetings, got in touch with the council to see if it would be possible to change it into a park, and got a government employment project going there and started work and turned it into a garden. In the beginning, it did occur to us that the council should really have put a park where Meanwhile was. I mean, it should be the council's responsibility to make sure that there is green space in the middle of London. And in this area, there really is very, very little of it. When we applied to the council in the beginning for a lease, they gave us the lease. And that's pretty much all they've done since. I mean, they haven't done any of the work. Everything that's been done has been done by a group of committed people together with the local community, and it's us that's built the park.
What we try and do at Meanwhile on the gardening side is to encourage as many people to get involved in it as possible, whether as an individual or a club, a hospital, a school or whatever. I live just near Meanwhile Gardens in a flat, and I haven't got a garden. And one day I decided I'd grow a few herbs on the windowsill. And I didn't have any earth, and I thought it was crazy to go out and spend £5 on a sack of earth. So I knew Meanwhile Gardens, I'd been past there many times, and I thought, why don't I go down there and ask for a few pots of earth, which is what I did. And they agreed that I could have some, and then I went off with my pots of earth. I'd got out the gates and I suddenly thought, this is crazy. Here I am getting earth to take back to my windowsill when there's a whole plot of land here, and I could maybe do gardening here and have it as my sort of garden. And so I went back and asked if they ever needed any voluntary workers. And they said yes, of course they did. And that's how it all started from there. It was quite a fantastic operation to actually get it all started off with. Every bit of topsoil was brought in and had to cover over all the rubble which was there. Even now, when I'm there gardening, I still come across the odd iron bedstead underneath the topsoil. I work with the gardeners and I also meet other volunteers like myself, young people on government work schemes and various mentally handicapped groups who go there as part of their therapy. And now it's quite incredible to think that in 10, 20 years' time, when all of the trees have grown a bit more and have become much more established, it won't look exactly like a little wood, but it's certainly going to be an unusual thing for this area. There used to be quite a lot of vandalism at Meanwhile in the early days. It used to be really sad. You'd come in one morning and see a tree which had been growing nicely for a couple of years suddenly had all its bark stripped off. But it was only out of ignorance on the kids' part. They didn't actually understand that if you rip the bark off of trees, they're going to die. Now they've gradually come around to an understanding about how things actually grow. It's really good. They now have their own little areas where they can go, they can do what they want. There's no park keepers around to chase them off. And everyone just fits in much better there and respects each other's areas.
What we're building down here is a scented courtyard, mainly for the visually handicapped, but for the rest of the community too. Basically, it's a series of raised flower beds that the blind can tend themselves. It'll also include a fountain because the sound will be nice and can create a nice atmosphere around it. How it came about is Judy Scott was running a volunteer project down here for Kensington Chelsea Mental Health, people who hadn't worked full-time for a number of years. Kensington Chelsea Mental Health Association really wanted to sponsor a project that would give a more extended and deeper work experience for people going back into work. The Government Manpower Services Commission agreed to pay wages for a stable workforce for a year so we could do this project. Most of the people who are working here have either had a long break from work or haven't worked before, and certainly haven't done this kind of work before. We're building walls, building a fountain, making wooden fences, planting flowers, eventually hoping to cast bronze and perhaps do tiling work in the fountain. So they have 12 months to learn the completely new skills and learn about learning skills.
In the summer, we planted a lot of seeds, things that grow quickly like radishes and lettuce. I was quite surprised the way they seemed really capable of digging holes and actually planting the plants. They did a lot of watering, they really enjoyed that.
Kenny, what are you doing now? I'm putting my fingers and I'm planting a seed. I put my finger in and put a little leaf in there. I'm watering the flowers to make the flowers grow. What are you doing? What? Let me do it, Crow. Let me do it. Put on. I went in the water to get some water. And then I just put more water in. And then the flowers grow high up the sky.
The boat club has been running at Meanwhile Gardens for the last 3 years. We started off just in a factory with no door on the place. We started off with a jumble sale that only 2 of us turned up to help out at, and we raised £30, and that was to buy a lock for the door. And then we were given a load of boats from Regent's Park, pedal boats, which we have now converted, some into sailing, some into paddling, some into rowing. We met a guy on the canal bank that done a sponsored swim for us and raised money to buy motor engines and 2 boats to use motor engines on. Before that, I had my own 2 engines which were taken. We've suffered a lot from break-ins, vandalism, which is only to be expected, but it's what the club is trying to stop. We're trying to give the kids an interest that will stop them from trying to break telephone boxes open to get money, stop them from breaking into places just for something to do. Down, I was the worst behaved child in this area. So I got on very badly at home, and I was being as bad-tempered as Bolshe, doing everything wrong just to get attention. So I know what the kids of this area feel like. Either they haven't got the attention, for whatever reason, they go out to be out and out bad. I come down here and I met Albert through my boyfriend. He came down on the canal bank and messed around in the boats while I was on holiday. I come back, he showed me the place. I went in the sailing boat and I said it was boring. Albert tried to get me to come back again and I didn't want to, so I come down and I used to just cause chaos, shouting and telling the kids the place was useless and everything. Come with me and we're going to do some trouble round the back or something, get Albert running after us, you know. And next week I come down and went in the sailing boat and I found there was such a great wind, we were tipping over and everything, and I found it so exciting. I ended up leading the kids down there. So I done good at sailing and I knew I was good at it and I helped others to do it, and that brought me out of being bad and it brought a lot of other kids round to doing something that they were good at.
The first Buskers concert in Meanwhile Gardens in 1977 was also the first event that ever happened in Meanwhile Gardens. And how it began was I'd been busking around the area for a few years, and I got a phone call would I come and play down at Meanwhile Gardens because they were turfing the amphitheatre and they wanted something happening while that was going on. So I came and played for a couple of hours, and at the end of that somebody gave me a £5, which I was a bit surprised and embarrassed by, because it obviously comes straight out of his pocket. So I said, OK, that's Buskers' money. If I give it back to you on behalf of Buskers, can Meanwhile Gardens match it with another £5? And that's enough to start the concerts with. What I really believe the Buskers concerts give is an opportunity for Buskers to come and perform in what's a very relaxed atmosphere to an audience that genuinely wants to see them and has made that effort to come along. And what we've always kept as a policy for the Buskers concerts is if anybody wants to play, we have to let them. So if you turn up with your instrument, whatever you want to do, you're on.
Freedom is the word all the years without thinking. Without thinking. It's a little like gypsy boy. It's dead. It does. know. Is there anything wrong with my passport? Have I been here too long? Since the last resort. It's just a formality in your case. Lie, 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 lie. La 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 la. You who are on the road must have it known that you can live fine, and so become yourself, because the past is just a goodbye, and teach your children well. We've got a lot of problems, you know. We've had 2 strings break on 2 different guitars, you know. We're going to have to stop.
And what usually happens every year, usually at the beginning of May, is that we print about 1,000 leaflets, and these just go out through the buskers and the Meanwhile Gardens grapevines. And every year, and this is the 6th year you're looking at, there's been a buskers concert the first Friday in June in Meanwhile Gardens. So anybody out there seeing this, if you want to see something like it next year, first Friday in June, be there.
We're down here now at Meanwhile Gardens as the boys are about to jump Loggy One. Right. Yeah! Here they come. Come on, boys! He goes off for the nice vertical there. And here comes Eddie. Oh, hits the top there. Here comes Errol, the big lad. And he pulls a beautiful cross. And there's Eddie again. Nice one. Frank, and a nice cross up there. We just caught that one. Oh, and the vertical's there. That was Derek on that cross up there. Stop.
Now here comes Frankie. Just a straight bunny hop. Now here comes Kenny Albert. That was a side cross. And they're off now. They're going to do doubles. They both land together. Kenny Albert doing some wheelies. Errol McLean now. A nice done over. Now here comes Derek Edwards. A front wheel turn. And there was a nice crash there. I know what that was. Let me come through. Go on, let me have a go.
Over the last 12 months, we've built the fountain, built the bar, flower beds, and the pillars. We've also laid a large part of the cobblestone paths. The only new materials on the site are the bricks and concrete. Everything else was here scrounged or we made it ourselves. What we've learned this year is that there's an amazing amount of resources and people wherever you live. And round here, whatever technical problems we've had, there's always been someone who's known the answer, or there's always been someone with a skill who's prepared to come in and show us how to do things. A good example was the tiles for the fountain. We couldn't afford them, so we had to find out how to make them. There is a pottery in the gardens. I found out how to make the tiles. We made a few, and they're curled up at the edges. And we made some more, we've got flat ones. And we sat down and talked and talked and talked and drew on bits of paper till we got some designs for the tiles from all of us really on the workforce. And we tried different glazes, and lots of glazes didn't work. And we kept trying glazes till we got colours that we liked. And now we've made 600-700 tiles, but we need something like 3,000 for the first part of the fountain we're going to tile. At the beginning of the project, we started talking to the residents in a local hostel for the visually handicapped, and we incorporated a lot of their suggestions about size and height of beds, automatic watering of the beds, and a system for locating where you are actually by stretching strings. And they've showed a lot of interest in carrying on in the courtyard when we finish building it, the planting and the maintenance and the use of it. We've also had inquiries from local hospitals for work groups to come and do some work in it. But ideally, we'd like to combine that with local residents who, over the years, have asked if they could do a bit of gardening. And this perhaps would give a quiet place to sit. And it's a little sun trap. It's a lovely corner.
Gardens is run by a management committee, and the management committee is made up of local people, representatives from other community organisations and individuals who are interested in the Gardens and what it stands for and what it does. The money to run the Gardens comes from various sources. We have an urban aid grant which is paid by central government and a small contribution from local council, and that pays for the wages of the 4 core workers on the project and a degree of the administration. It doesn't obviously cover all the administration and running costs because Meanwhile's got a lot bigger since we first applied for that grant. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen when the urban aid runs out. That's something we've got to think very carefully about financially, what we do then. Fundraising's a constant thing on the Gardens. Money's always a problem, and we always need more of it. I think now people realise that Meanwhile is actually here to stay, then a lot more people are getting interested and involved and wanting to help. And I think Meanwhile will just sort of develop along those lines and really be a part of this area and something that people want.